What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic week. Today I wanted to address an issue that's been kind of annoying me, and that's getting more USB power. The JL, it comes with a ton of USB ports. It's got 110 volt behind the center console. It's got a nice 12 volt in the back. There's some USB ports in the center of the dash. So why would I want to add more power? A couple reasons. One, the USB ports on the JL don't put out enough amperage. And what's happening is my devices aren't charging enough to stay, well, they're actually depleting. So they're not getting enough power to them, like my phone and my tablet, to actually stay charged. So I want to get some USB ports with some higher amperage output. This is something I've been using in my JK for quite a while, and it's got 4 USB ports and 3 12 volt ports on it. So 3 of these ports put out up to 2.4 amps and one is a 1 amp. Basically, whatever you can run through this up to 10 amps. There's a 10 amp fuse in this. Now, I couldn't find this exact one on Amazon because I bought it so long ago, but there's lots of them out there, and I'll put a link down in the description for one that is very similar. So the other thing that keeps driving me crazy is every time my tablet and I plug it in, I take my tablet and I plug it into the USB port, it wants to use Android Auto. My tablet I'm only using for off-road navigation, and so constantly it's flipping between both devices and it's prompting me and cutting out my music. So to be honest, the easiest transition to getting in my vehicle and having music is placing my phone down on the wireless charger, and it auto connects over Bluetooth and opens Spotify and starts playing. The third reason is the wires. The wires drive me nuts. I want the wires cleaned up. So right now I've got the wires basically hanging down from my devices to this thing, which I have plugged into the 12 volt connection in front of my transfer case shifter. And so now I've got this 12 volt wire. So you bump it when you go to grab the transfer case selector. If you use the USB ports, they're right in front of the shifter, and you got to keep that flap up, and it just doesn't look clean, and there's wires all over the place. So that's basically the 3 reasons why I want to add this. And this will just allow me to discreetly hide the wires behind the dash, and we're going to wire it in. We're going to sort of hardwire into the vehicle. Now, this mod kind of does require to have the auxiliary switches. If you have the auxiliary switches, you get the bonus of these extra 2 wires under your front dash, under your passenger footwell. Now, the auxiliary switches, if you're not familiar with them, allow you to add four switch circuits, 2 that are 40 amp and 2 that are 15 amp. All right, and the switches control those circuits, and you have the wires under your passenger footwell or next to your battery box in your engine bay. So it's really great to add up to 4 accessories without having to do a bunch of wiring and punching through the firewall and adding switches, all that kind of stuff. The bonus, which I found out, and I didn't know about this before, is that you also get 2 more wires under your passenger footwell. One is direct to battery, and one is ignition, or with the ignition, comes on with the ignition. Now these are only 10 amps, so you can't put a lot of load on them, but this USB thing is only good for 10 amps anyways. If you didn't have the auxiliary switches, you could hardwire this to the battery. That's basically how I had it set up in the JK, so that it can always be on and charging my devices. And on the back of this, there's a little switch. So whenever I got into the vehicle and I needed to charge my devices, my tablet and my GoPro charger, and I would just flick that on and it would power everything. But in the JL, we're gonna set this up to come onto the ignition. Now, I'm not gonna wire this in permanently. I wanna keep this with this 12 volt connector on it, so I can upgrade it in the future if there's a different one that I want. So what I'm gonna do is I bought this, and I'll put a link in the description as well. This is just a 12 volt power plug, and it's got a positive and negative on it, and it also has a fused connection, which we don't really need because those wires are already fused. And then on top of that, the USB connector box is also fused. And I'm gonna wire the positive up to that ignition on wire, and we'll just ground the negative out somewhere underneath the dash. It's gonna be nice and clean. All the wires will be out of the way. And we're gonna run the wires up the passenger footwell, around the speaker grill, across the dash, and across the arms of the 67 Designs mounts. Now there's 2 ways you could do this. You could pull all of the stereo out, which if you wanna see how that's done, I showed you how to take the stereo out of the dash in the front mounted camera video, which we'll put a link up in the corner. It doesn't take that long, and I think if I was doing this before I installed the 67 Designs mount system, I would probably just drill out some holes underneath where it was going to mount and run some USB cables up to it. But if you don't want to drill some holes, it's fairly easy to route all of these cables around the dash in between your windshield and the dash as well. And it's going to give me some future options because I might not leave the tablet on the 67 Designs mount. When I install in a future video the JCR overhead rack mount system, I might actually mount the tablet up top. So we'll see. That will be coming in a future video, so make sure you're subscribed if you want to see those future mods, because we're pretty much putting out a video at least once a week, sometimes twice a week right now. So before we get started, quick shout out to my good friend Sean at The Story Till Now. He is running a pre-order on these shirts that I'm wearing over on dirtyanddangerous.com. If you want to support his channel and go check out our website, dirtyanddangerous.com, and put a pre-order in for one of these shirts. They are really great quality, 100% cotton, silk screened, not iron on. These are really nice shirts, and I've got one of the samples. So if you want to support Sean's channel, he's another local off-road YouTuber with a Jeep Gladiator that makes some awesome off-road videos, and we've done a few collabs together. Go check out his channel, give him a subscribe, but also go check out dirtyanddangerous.com, and you can pre-order one of these shirts. I think it's only going to be up for another week for the pre-order, but there's also KC250 decals if you want to support my channel over there as well. Anyways, enough merch plug-in. All right, so if you were unsure about any of the information on those wires or don't believe anything I just told you, you can go check out your manual. 119 explains the auxiliary switches and where you can actually find these two wires. They're a little bit complicated to locate because they are wrapped in. They don't look quite like that in the picture, but they're there if you look. Auxiliary 1 and 2 are the 40 amp, as I just mentioned, and it indicates which color they are. 3 and 4 are the 15 amp. And this is what we're interested in, not the battery 10 amp, but the ignition 10 amp, which is going to be the pink and orange wire. So we need to locate that pink and orange wire in the bundle. Then we are going to solder up the positive side of this guy. And this is going to just basically allow us to plug anything we want into that 12 volt connection. And we'll just have to find a negative terminal, negative bolt to ground this out to. All right, so we have located the bundle of wires. I had to strip off the, I forget what they call this fuzzy material. It's not electrical tape, but I had to strip off the material to actually see all of the wires here. And as indicated, we need to find the pink and orange one. It's not going to be one of these larger gauge wires. Those are most likely the 40 amp. Obviously, you need to have a thicker wire to carry more amperage. So it's going to be one of these remaining 4 wires. And we've got pink with a very, very light orange stripe on it. So I'm going to assume that is the wire we are looking for. So I have my wire strippers here. I'm going to cut the end off of this, strip the wire, and do the same process with this. Now, as always, guys, it is best practice to disconnect your battery before doing any electrical work on your vehicle. Last thing you want to do is fry the electrical system on your brand new $60,000 or $70,000 Jeep. So go ahead and disconnect. I usually just disconnect the negative terminal. That's adequate to break the circuit. And then let's start cutting some wires. Just removing the door strap panel here. If you pull this off, just pull it straight back towards you. In here, there is what looks to be a really good negative terminal with a bunch of other stuff already grounded out to it. So I'm just gonna pull this panel off somehow. We just disconnected the door harness, pulled this little cap off, unhooked the door leash, and now we have these bolts nicely exposed. We'll use one of these as our negative termination point. It was important to know where my negative termination point was going to be so that I knew just how much wire I needed on the negative side. Now I just have to decide exactly where I want to mount this. So this is where I'm going to have my 12 volt. It'll kind of be tucked out of the way so the connection won't get bumped. And then I can put a little bit of extra loom in here in case I want to move it or I need to pull it out. And we can just kind of tie it up here behind that panel that we just took off. If you were wiring this directly to the battery, obviously you want to have this on here with the appropriate amperage fuse and as close to the battery as you can. But since we're using a system that is already protected by a fuse, plus we're going to have a fuse in that 12 amp, or that USB breakout box, I don't really feel the need to have that on here. I'm gonna leave it with just maybe, we'll leave it a little couple extra inches, and then maybe we can use that fuse connector for something in the future. Now that we've got the negative side done, we'll do the positive side. I like to spread the wires out when connecting two wires together. Don't forget to put your heat shrink on before. If you have a third arm, these are really handy. I'll put a link down in the description for these as well. I just put some cardboard underneath just in case I get a solder drip. I don't want it melting my carpet. So we'll just bind this up nice and tight, and then we're gonna hit this with some solder. And I am using a butane soldering iron for Portasol. And I find it really good for soldering sort of small to medium sized wires. I'm sure you could use other types of connectors. Those crimping connectors with the solder ring in the middle seem to work pretty good as well. And then we'll cover this up with our heat shrink. And then I'm gonna wrap it with a little bit of electrical tape after. Just add a little bit more protection. I'll connect our ring terminal to our bolt and we'll test it out. All right, so there we go. We now have this powered. We can see in there. Doesn't show up very good on the camera, but we can see once the vehicle is on, the second key press or turned on completely, we now have power to this. And if we want, we can turn it off, but that will turn on and off with the vehicle. Okay, so I decided to put the USB breakout box in the actual glove box itself. There is a nice little hole off to the left side of the glove box that you can route that 12-volt connector down to your new receptacle that you just wired in. And then I just use a little bit of stick-on Velcro, put one piece on the back of the glove box and another piece on the back of the USB breakout box. And that way, if I need to, I can kind of grab it and pull it back out of the glove box to maybe plug something in. Super nice and clean. And also, if I want to charge my GoPro batteries or something, I can put them into the glove box and connect them up to that USB power. And so underneath, we've tightened up all the wires. We've got our negative terminal here connected to the body of the Jeep. And I've just used a little bit of Velcro straps, a couple Velcro straps to tidy up this wire and hold them up against some existing wiring harness. And we've got our 12-volt connector up here out of the way where it won't get kicked by anybody. And then we've just run the wire along here up into the glove box. Now I have my USB power that will come on when my vehicle comes on, which is super useful. I'm going to use it to power the devices here on my dash. We're going to do a little bit of cabling. All I did was I bought a couple 3-foot USB extensions, which I'm going to plug in here, and we'll bring those cables out around and under the dash. If you're going to add this to your vehicle, you could leave it just as it is. So let's finish up with a quick time lapse. If you want to watch me running these cables up to my devices, pretty straightforward. Thanks so much for watching this week's video, guys. As always, if you enjoyed it, leave a like. Any comments, leave them down below and I will try to answer them. Smash that subscribe button because new videos coming every week and twice a week most of the time. I'll see you guys soon in the next upload.